This is the one before last, because I'll be summarizing the conference a little later. But a few words about the guidelines for infrastructure, linear infrastructure for pedestrian design guidelines. This is the second part in the set of 3. The fourth is going to consist of the guidelines for lighting. As in the other presentations by Professor Olszewski or Professor Gacy, we've used the same body of surveys. And the data from the projects and surveys that have been submitted by road management authorities, we see that the largest number of doubts and questions about designing for pedestrians pertained to the cross-section of the pavement, drainage, surface, and lighting. Also the width of the pavement. The content here is quite rich. There are a lot of guidelines. I'll focus on the main ones. In addition to the general characteristics and the general requirements, these are divided into preparatory work, designing geometrical parameters, and then adjusting the other elements of the road for the needs of pedestrian traffic, new architecture, organizational devices, drainage, surface, lighting, maintenance. I'm going to focus on 3 that are marked here in red. That is designing the geometrical parameters in the cross-section, the width of the pavement, and the systems for supporting the movement of special needs pedestrians. When we talk about linear infrastructure, it is composed of the basic elements, which is the pedestrian pathway, pedestrian and bicycle pathway, and additional elements such as driveway and roadside, which could be used by pedestrians. The basic ones are the pavement and pedestrian pathway. This is a new term. The pedestrian pathway, which be a device of a slightly lower standards than a pavement. These are described both. The pedestrian bicycle pathways are usually designed for the needs of the cyclists. Some other devices, such as access to buildings, access to public transport stops, links between those, small architecture, we're talking benches, rest places, greenery. We have safety devices. These are especially barriers, systems that support the walking of visually impaired persons. There's a whole chapter on that. This all constitutes linear infrastructure. The design procedure includes preparation, stage. This includes the usage of certain standards for pedestrians, and then assessing the equipment. What is pedestrian pathway? It consists of 3 functional lines. In many cities, this is used. Also, we mentioned in our guidelines, we talked about 4. Here we have 3, but the third is divided into 2 parts. The basic walkway. This must be free of obstacles. We'll tell you later about what the detailed requirements are. Supporting lane, which is partly access to buildings, and the buffer lane, which divides the main walkway from the driveway. This is subdivided into usable and technical part. I'm sorry, this is the wrong presentation. The colleagues did not put in the latest version, but I'll struggle through this. When we look at the location in the cross-section of a street or road, and this is quite important, we have what we call a safety zone. We install this on every road where permissible speed for vehicles is about 50 kilometers per hour, and that zone is between half a meter to 11 meters wide. It must be 11 meters when it's 90 kilometers. This must be free of obstacles, and any pavement or pedestrian crossing must be separated from the driveway with this width of a zone. The walkway, now that's the lane which is free of obstacles. The minimum width is 1.8 meters. And it may change. It may be wider or narrower, depending on the pedestrian traffic intensity. If we have as you can see in the picture, we have 0.2 meter safety belts, which either serve as buffer or enter the pedestrian support lane. So how do we do it? We take 1.8 as a starting point. This is the minimum width. Now, depending on the intensity of pedestrian traffic and the classes of traffic conditions, we calculate. We actually have a formula to calculate the design width. In recreational walkways, the conditions are excellent. People should be free to walk. This is level A. For multifunction and transport, it should be B or C. For transportations where there could be temporary jams, we can allow D, and in recreational, which connect to sports facilities such as stadiums, we introduce E class. So the minimum width is 1.8, 1.2 that's on pavements, 1.2 on pedestrian lanes out of the city. The existing pavements can be narrower, but if they are, we have to build facility for passing by in opposite directions every 25 meters. Now, when we look specifically at the pavement in urban areas, the standard width of the pedestrian walkway is 3 meters. To this, we have to add support, which is on the building site, depending on what it is it shops or no, and the buffer. So the minimum from the edge of pedestrian walkway to the wall of buildings is 2.5 meters. When we talk about pedestrian walkway free of obstacles, that means that there cannot be any cars there. Outside urban areas, outside build-up areas, the sizes are smaller. Minimum is 1.2, recommended is 2 meters, and there are buffers on either side. Plus, it is removed by the width of the safety belt from the driveway, which is between half a meter and 11 meters, again depending on the permissible vehicle speed. If it's closer, there has to be a barrier. But again, the barrier has to be located outside the pedestrian walkway. The same pertains to pathways, pedestrian pathways. The 1.6 is the minimum width for pedestrians, and again, the buffer zone from the driveway is very similar. It ranges from half a meter at 50 kilometers an hour and 11 at 90. Now, the standards are different. It does not have to be hardened surface. It could be sand, gravel, crushed rock. It does not have to be hardened pavement. What is key is that any of those solutions, pedestrians have to be off the driveway, because we have to remember that the largest number of fatalities among pedestrians is when they are on the driveway. And the last element is pedestrians with special needs. And here we've obviously included all of the elements that Professor Wysocki discussed. We call them field. We have the field of attention, we have the leading field, the warning field. We don't call them texture, we call them fields. We prescribe what they should be made of and how. The dilemma, however, is what do we do with pedestrian crossings? Do we keep the warning belt close to the curb, or do we take it away from the curb? What we need is to have clear contrast. The contrast between the yellow belt and then there is this yellow surface of the paving blocks. The contrast must be over 30. If there isn't enough contrast, it won't work. There's still an ongoing discussion about that. It will continue in October. Whether we're going to move it closer, that lead belt closer to the curb, the warning belt, or move it away. That was all, and thank you for your attention.